Peace, y'all, and welcome back to Game Time Astrology Podcast, the first ever sports astrology podcast. I'm your host, Hugh Ray, the astrologer, and we're going to talk about Bronny James in this particular episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's go ahead and jump into it. So I'm going to talk about Bronny James because here we are. This is year 2 for him, and there's already, again, we're ramping it up with some Bronny James bashing on several YouTube platforms and several media platforms and stuff like that. And I wanted to bring light to his natal chart, specifically 3 placements that I see in his natal chart that speaks to why Bronny James is having these struggles in the NBA and around his career. And those 3 placements I'm going to be talking about is Chiron in Capricorn, South Node in Scorpio, and the North Node in Taurus. Now, he does have all 3 of these placements in his chart. So we're going to talk about it and just kind of bring some light to it as to what he could be dealing with internally. Now, I do want to say that this is, as a disclaimer, this is for entertainment purposes only because I do not have Bronny James's birth time. I can't find it on the internet, of course, so I do use 12 noon. And Bronny James was born on October the 6th of 2004, which makes him a Libra sun and a Cancer moon. Okay, we don't know what his rising sign is, so it's okay. We won't be talking about that anyway. We're going to be talking about Chiron. We do know where Chiron is by just putting in, where he was born and the date he was born, and that's all we need. So we got the Chiron placement, we got the North Node, and we got the South Node placements as well. The South Node is at 2 degrees. The North Node is at 2 degrees. So it's fair to say that he is a North Node Taurus and a South Node in Scorpio. So the first placement we're going to talk about is his Chiron in the sign of Capricorn. Okay. Now this particular placement plus the Saturn in Cancer as well, we can talk about that at some point also. These 2 placements, but particularly the Chiron and Capricorn placement, is where I believe there is this ongoing theme around Bronny James's life when it comes to fulfilling his father's legacy versus his own. Okay. Now with Chiron is the wounded healer, but the way that I look at Chiron is the trigger that we all have in our birth chart. Okay. So whatever sign Chiron is in, that's where you're triggered. Now, if Capricorn rules the father and authority and career and responsibility and being wise, but let's focus on the word legacy and career. There is an insecurity or a wound around legacy, career, and the father. Now, I believe that this placement, as well as some other things going on in his chart that I won't really speak to because I don't have the birth time, but we're going to just focus specifically on placements here because we don't have the birth time. So I don't want to give an accurate disposition here or inquisitive knowledge to the collective where I don't know the birth time. With the Chiron and Capricorn placement, there is a bit of a wound that needs healing around career and legacy and the father. There is a wound there. There is a trigger there. Okay. Now, with Chiron and Capricorn, the trigger could be not being able to live up to the father's expectations or the career expectations or the legacy expectations. Now, Shador Sanders, that plays in the NFL, who is Deion Sanders' son, he also shares this same Chiron placement. He has it at 5 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. Bronny James has his at 20 degrees. Now, as you can see with Shador Sanders as well, there's some wounding with him as well. He's not able to live up to Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, prime, did amazing, had an amazing career in the NFL, whereas Shador is struggling. So Shador is, I also talked about that in his video a couple podcast episodes ago, that he also has some wounding around showing up in his father's legacy. So Chiron and Capricorn essentially is wounds around the legacy of the father. Capricorn rules the father, Saturn rules the father, right? And we know that LeBron James, if you don't know, he has a stellium in Capricorn, and Bronny James has a stellium in the sign of Libra. Now, one thing I can tell you about Libras is that they do want to please people, particularly with these configurations in his chart with a Saturn in Cancer and a Moon in Cancer. It's definitely about pleasing the family, right? Pleasing the parents, okay? Now, That is a shadow aspect of Libra, unfortunately. A lot of times before a Libra gets to their Saturn return, they are operating in their shadow, which is the people pleasing, which is the, bending over backwards for people. This is what Bronny James is essentially exuding in his life. And we are all seeing it on a mass scale because everyone can see quite clearly. And I do agree with it that he chose to leave college early and go into the NBA to fulfill his father's legacy in order to, I think unconsciously to him, heal that father wound, that legacy wound. Like, I want to be able to live up to the expectations of, the legacy that my father has built, all these 22 seasons that he's played. And so I'm going to go ahead and acquiesce to his desires, because I don't believe, by looking at Bronny James's South Node in Scorpio and North Node in Taurus, that his purpose is to be an NBA player. I don't believe that his purpose is to be an NBA player. Absolutely not. Because here's the thing about the South Node in Scorpio. We know that Scorpio rules the eighth house of shared resources, right? And other people's money. And, South Node in Scorpio, eighth house is like, the comfort zone of, I can just kind of like coast while riding another person's coattails, or being the benefactor, or the beneficiary, I should say, of someone else's resources, right? And so in this example, clearly, LeBron James Sr. is the resource, and Bronny is resting in that South Node of Scorpio and allowing his father to be a resource to him that got him into the NBA. Because let's face it, Bronny James would not have been drafted in the NBA coming from playing half a season in college. If that was anyone else, they wouldn't have been drafted. Okay. They wouldn't have been drafted. Okay. He had teammates. He had a teammate by the name of Boogie Ellis who actually played the full season. And Boogie Ellis is much better than Bronny James, in my opinion. And Boogie Ellis is currently playing overseas. Boogie Ellis should be in the NBA on someone's team right now. But hey, I digress. This is my point though. He has a South Node in Scorpio. And so he is in his South Node energy. Now, a lot of people do not reach the full actualization and potential and crystallizing of their North Node until about the age of 42. Bronny James is 21. So, of course, when I'm looking at this from my astrological lens, I see a kid that is resting in his South Node energy. And because of that, nothing is working. Nothing's working. That's why he's getting all the backlash and people talking crap and people bashing him, and, every single season saying that, he's terrible, he's cheeks, he's all this stuff, he's not an NBA player, et cetera, et cetera. And it's true, because Bronny James has a North Node in Taurus. Now, when you have a North Node in Taurus, Taurus rules the second house of resources, the resources that you cultivate from an earthly plane, working on things, right? Taurus is an earth sign that is a very diligent type of individual. When someone has a sun in Taurus, they are very practical. They take their time to make decisions, and they are hard workers. They don't mind working 9 to 5, doing what they have to do, putting in the grind work. And then they do accumulate a lot of, material, beautiful material things through their own hard work and effort. And this is what Bronny James needs to be cultivating, finding a way to cultivate his own resources, build his own wealth and resources through finding his own lane. The NBA is his father's lane, obviously, right? Because Bronny James should not have been drafted to the NBA playing half of a college season, period. Because he had like the heart condition. That's why I say half of a college season. He should have continued to, go through college, and, then at that point he could have made a decision if he wanted to go to NBA or he wanted to pursue a career with the degree that he was pursuing in college. So this is my point. I hope you guys can see my point, is that with a North Node, your North Node is your path and your purpose in life. He is supposed to be moving more in that direction, cultivating his own resources through his own efforts, and not a shared resource from his father. Okay. If he continues in the NBA, if Bronny James does continue down this pathway to the South Node in Scorpio, what is going to end up happening is that there will be some resentment towards LeBron James Sr. I had to record this part over again because I was recording it and there was no sound. So pardon me if I say something that I said in the first part again. What I wanted to bring up here is that LeBron James Sr. actually has his Jupiter in the sign of Capricorn, and it's in a 1 degree orb conjunction to Bronny James's Chiron in the sign of Capricorn. Now, Jupiter is the planet of expansion, optimism, luck, law, truth, travel, right? But whatever Jupiter touches, it expands. It makes it bigger. It makes it, more expansive, and it just widens things. So when you have Jupiter in a conjunction to Chiron, that makes for more of a deepening of a wound or a deepening of an insecurity, but usually it's from a place of optimism, right? It's from a place of, you know, it's from a good place. It's from a place of, I believe in you kind of thing. And so this is the dynamic that I feel plays out between LeBron James and Bronny James, with LeBron's Jupiter in a conjunction to Bronny's Chiron in the sign of Capricorn. They're both in the sign of Capricorn. Now, what I'm getting at here is that I feel like LeBron James does believe in Bronny truly. He is optimistic about that. He does try to heal his son's wound around career and legacy and following in his footsteps. But what LeBron probably does not realize is that it's actually hurting Bronny more than it is helping him. Okay? Because again, Bronny James being in the NBA is him being trapped in his South Node energy, when in all actuality, what Bronny James is supposed to be doing is creating his own path in life. He has a North Node in Taurus. He is meant to be resourceful on his own, build his own career path, not be in the NBA, not do any of that. He's supposed to find what he's supposed to do in this lifetime. Now, what I'm saying is Mercury in the 14 degrees, Chiron at 20 degrees, the North and the South Node at 2 degrees, Saturn at 26 degrees. These are all degrees that are associated with Taurus energy and Scorpio energy. Okay. And these are the axes of finances and resources. Okay. So I do feel that one of the decisions around Bronny going to the NBA is not only to appease his father with him being a Libra, him being in his shadow, it was also a financial reason as well. This is the easy path, right? The thing about the South Node energy for every single person in this planet is that, yeah, in hindsight, in our minds, it is an easy pathway, but the external world will quickly show you when you become over 20, like Bronny is, when you become over 20, when you get into your adult world, when you're not shielded by your parents anymore, the world will show you that resting in your South Node energy is going to get you in trouble, and it will not bring you any peace, essentially, right? Now, like I said, with a Libra child, as Bronny James is, and he has a Libra stellium, typically Libras, before they reach their Saturn return, they are in their shadow energy, and that is people pleasing, appeasing others, bending over backwards. Yes, Bronny James is in his shadow currently as a Libra Sun, Libra Mercury, Libra Jupiter, Libra Mars, right? He is behaving in his shadow. And what Libra needs to understand, this archetype needs to understand, is that the only way that you can balance relationships is first you have to find balance within yourself first, and then you'll be able to balance out your external world. If there's no balance within yourself, then you can't truly feel balanced, and then no one else will be balanced. So with that being said, I do think that there will be some resentment later on down the line if Bronny James does not shift out of the NBA and find his own path and his own purpose. Because when you have a North Node in Taurus, your destiny is to find your own way, right? Get out of the shadow of the South Node in Scorpio and allowing other people's resources to fund your dreams, but you find a way to fund your own dream through your own resourcefulness, through your own power, through your own action. Because Taurus energy is an energy that is, secure, stable, practical. They take their time, and they usually build their resources from hard work. And then they're able to enjoy those creature comforts because they work so hard and they've been so methodical, and they do garner a lot of really nice things, good food, good wine, good clothes, all those things. But Tauruses understand, typically Taurus sons, they do understand that I need to work for what I have. It is an earth sign. It is a slow moving earth sign. All the earth signs are slow moving, but Taurus is very much so diligent on receiving the money that they have worked so hard for, and they are no stranger to hard work. You see, with Bronny, the NBA essentially, in the grand scheme of things, is the easy path. But what he is going to start seeing throughout his career in the NBA, if he stays in the NBA, he's going to have to. He's signed a 4-year contract unless he can get out of it. He's going to start seeing that it actually is not the right path, and it's not easy because of all of the harsh criticism, all of the people, saying negative things about him, making videos and stuff and content. And I'm sure that that affects his mental and his psyche because, again, he has Chiron at 20 degrees, which is Scorpio, the psyche, Pluto, psychology, right? And so we really got to be careful with how we, talk about Bronny, and I feel for him. I do. I can only imagine what he's going through on a mental level, especially today. Today being the full moon in Aries, and the moon is actually in a direct opposition to his sun sign today, and it could probably be a very challenging birthday for him. So hopefully he's able to tune things out and just focus on his loved ones and having a good time on his birthday. But anyway, moving on now to his Saturn in Cancer. Okay. So with Saturn in Cancer, I do see that when it comes to the Saturn return that's going to come up when he turns 27, if he does not correct things now and find his own pathway, there will be resentment towards the father. Okay. And the family, pushing him to do something that wasn't good for him in the first place. I do believe that Bronny should not have been playing in the NBA. He should not have been drafted in the NBA playing half of a college season. He should have stayed in college and all 4 years to determine whether or not he wanted to go to the NBA or do a completely different career. Okay. So yes, he has a 4-year deal, right? And so he will have to do the whole 4 years unless he can get out of the contract, as I said before. And then he will be around 25 years old. And when you're 25 years old, you are going through your seventh house perfection year. Okay, seventh house perfection year. And that's usually around relationships. It's typically around the time you go through your Saturn, not Saturn return, your Jupiter return. He has Jupiter in Libra. And at that point, I do believe that he should allow that contract to dissolve and find his own way at that point. I also to believe that while Jupiter is in Libra and while it will be transiting over his sun in Libra, that should give him the confidence to break free and step more in alignment with his North Node in Taurus. Okay. Because what we could end up seeing down the line is that because this pathway of being in the NBA is very, very hard for him because it's not his path. It's his father's path, right? It's very eighth house. It's very much so, it's very easy for me to make money, eighth house share resources, and not really have to like build my own thing, Taurus North Node, essentially. So if he does not allow himself to transition at age 24, 25, and then 2 years later, he walks into that Saturn return with Saturn in Cancer, there could be some sort of some sort of upheaval at the Saturn return around security and stability. So I'm hoping that by 24, 25, he does not resign in the NBA because at that point, LeBron will be long gone. And I don't believe that LeBron will be able to keep him in the NBA once that 4-year contract is up. And so that could affect Bronny's, I don't want to say like security because I mean, I believe he'll be taken care of, but I mean, you just never know. I mean, LeBron is a Capricorn. He has a Capricorn stellium, and Bronny is a young man. And I do believe that, LeBron is traditional with all the Capricorn energy in his chart, Capricorn stellium. And he's not going to be taking care of a grown man. I don't care if it's his son. So I do worry for Bronny if he does not change course by 24, 25, age 24, age 25, that he could find himself in a pickle around his Saturn return, and it will be surrounding his safety, security, and stability with family and within the home life. Okay, because his purpose is predicated on, you know, forging his own pathway, building his own resources, figuring out what he should be creating in order to create wealth for himself, and to not necessarily allow his father to, you know, instill these privileges for him to walk into wealth. No, that is South Node. That is unfortunately not the pathway for him. And we're all seeing it on a mass scale that people are not buying it. People are not buying that he is belonging in the NBA, and they are not believing that he should even be there. Heck, even be in the G League. It's just not a thing. Now, when we look at Bryce James, his chart, I don't believe that Bryce will get the help from LeBron to get into the NBA. His pathway is a little bit different. Now, when I looked at Bryce's chart, he has Chiron in Aquarius. And typically, when you have Chiron in Aquarius, there's something around your long term goals and networks that you belong to, friends, but definitely networks. There's some sort of insecurity around networks. So I don't believe that Bryce will have the same opportunity to get a leg up into the NBA from LeBron James. I don't believe that. No, I believe that his pathway is a lot more different. Whereas with Bronny James and LeBron's Jupiter being right on Bronny's Chiron placement, it is really opening up and digging that wound and making it, bleed a little bit more. The wound of, I need to live up to my father. He believes in me. He is optimistic that I can be just like him, or I can do great things, when in all actuality, LeBron probably doesn't realize that he is actually hurting Bronny by, exacerbating this wound, right? Because let's face it, Bronny is the owner of this chironic wound in Capricorn. So he is the only person that can heal this wound. The way that you heal a chironic wound in Capricorn is to figure out what that career is that you really truly love, right? What is it that you truly love? And then that career is going to heal you on a soul level, on a deep soul level. It should be a career that you really love, that you can be focused on. And for Bronny's case, a career that he has pioneered on his own without his father's resources, without his father's networks, without his father's anything. This is the pathway for Bronny to have in this lifetime. We are all seeing it on a mass scale that this is not where he's at. He's resting in that South Node energy. We don't actualize our North Node energy until age 42, typically. And so he's 21 years old. So he's definitely in that South Node energy. So a lot of learning to do, a lot of growing pains. But I do believe that by age 24, 25, once that contract is over, Bronny James should shift to a different career, a career that he can pioneer and see and actualize on his own without his father's resources, without any networks that his father has or anything like that. Okay, it's something that he needs to find that he can create wealth from, because it's a wealth thing for him. It's like, with the Chiron degree and the North Node and South Node degree at 2 degrees, and then the Saturn and Cancer degree at 26 degrees. These are all Taurus and Scorpio degrees that we're talking about here. Okay. He also has Mercury in Libra at 14 degrees, also about finances, being able to negotiate finances. So I do believe that once that Jupiter in Libra starts to conjunct his Mercury in Libra as well, that'll give him even more confidence in terms of negotiating and speaking up for himself, negotiating contracts, and just really striking out on his own and doing his own thing. Unfortunately, he didn't finish college, so he's not able to really focus on what he is meant to create. So he is going to be a bit of a late bloomer with that while his father is influencing him. But I do believe that, all hope is not lost. I believe at age 24, age 25, around that seventh house perfection year, he should find more of a way to get out of those contracts and not go back into a new one and start to really forge ahead on his own. So that way, when he goes into the Saturn return, he'll be more prepared. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I will see you guys in the next episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And peace.